What's good, party people? This is
Hey.
According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to the good sister. She is a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu practitioner, a owner of a performance gym, and soon to be a Jiu Jitsu academy coming to the great region of Big Bear, California. She is the one, the only, Jessica Van Alstyne. Jessica, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing today?
Doing great, doing great. Glad to have you here. And it's funny because like we're kind of talking off air because I kind of like people collect Pokemon or what have you, right? Whatever the kids are doing these days. I don't know, so whatever. I befriend people, and yes, I want to be friends, but I it's almost like my ulterior motive is like figuring out what they're about and having them on the podcast. So I'm so glad that you're able to reach out. I was there at like the what is it, the baby shower of one of your babies. Like we've known each other a
Yep, my
while.
first. Yep. Yeah, he's 4.5 now.
What?
I
What?
know. Time flies.
Like like that. I'm wow. Four. Jeez. Which I mean, how's that been? Because like obviously you're juggling so many things. Your own personal endeavors. Obviously awaking into who you are as a person. Who
Yep.
you are in this kind of avenue of jujitsu, helping other people, transform their bodies and lives and mindsets and what have you, and then also you got case in there. Like it's a lot,
Yes.
right?
Yes. It is. Well, and we actually have three now. So I just hit my third
Wow.
10 weeks ago today. Um, so yes. So it's three versus two, and it is a lot. But because I do what I love, it doesn't feel like a lot. Does that make sense? It just kind of
Yeah.
everything just kind of flows together at this point. There was definitely struggle bus moments,
Yep.
trying to adjust, but it's all about just kind of allowing life to flow and kind of going with it and figuring out the prioritization of time. And that's been the biggest
that
thing
does
is like,
that doesn't at all sound like a jiu-jitsu practitioner at all, right? Just go with the flow, like feeling
yeah.
out as you roll. That doesn't happen in jiu-jitsu at all, right?
And that's why I feel
Never.
like jujitsu prepared me to, honestly, it prepared me for motherhood. I started jujitsu May 2016, and I got pregnant because I cut weight for Worlds, and apparently that makes birth control pills ineffective. Didn't know that, and got pregnant, and so I couldn't compete. And life changed from that point forward because I was in that mindset of like, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to be a world champ, and don't get me wrong, I plan to compete again, but
Yeah.
it definitely did change the course. And now here we are, currently tractors in the yard breaking ground for our new academy. So
And it's amazing, right? Because specifically Big Bear, where you're at, it's pretty synonymous for building champions, right? We're talking Oscar De La Hoya, which
yeah.
is Sugar Shane Mosley, a litany of boxers, but nothing, quite like anything in the jiu-jitsu realm, right? I know Tony Ferguson at times will, go out there and train or what have you, but like a specific jiu-jitsu gym in Big Bear,
Yeah.
at least to me, I might be glib to it. I mean, have there been others?
So there is a really cool grappling club, and that's kind of more what it is. It's a club where they kind of go and roll. And then there is another academy that's kind of family oriented as well. And he's really awesome. Actually, we're good friends with him, and we actually did some co-open mats together and stuff like that. And he has a really great kids program going and stuff like that. And I think he's working on some other developments. And then there's us, and the way we're in the valley is actually, it takes about, to get from the dam all the way to our end can take up to an hour depending on traffic. So it's nice because the grappling club is over on the west end in the village. Javon's kind of right in the middle, and then we're over here all the way on the east side.
So everybody, no matter what part of the Big Bear kind of region and valley, they're getting their jujitsu met, their needs met.
Yes, the thing is up here, there's a lot of like part-timers. There's not a lot of full-timers who even know about jujitsu or training or anything. They were born and raised here, and it wasn't necessarily something you see on TV all the time.
Right.
And so they don't even know it exists. You know, they know about striking, but
Yeah.
maybe they don't know about grappling, right? And
Right.
so we're hoping to change that up
That's
here.
absolutely brilliant. But I mean, not to kind of put the wagon in front of the horse, right? But I mean, in terms of jujitsu, right? You mentioned, competing at worlds and what have you. But like, when did you specifically, start or even hear about jujitsu?
So it's kind of a funny story. So I actually used to do Spartan races, right?
Hmm.
That was like my thing. I did trifectas where you do three in a year and you get the little metal pieces to put together and all that. And I used to run obstacle course racing workshops in which I got people together and basically created like a mini Spartan race inside of a facility in Pasadena. I had the tire flips, Hercules hoist, monkey bars, all this stuff. So we had this thing called the rig. It was this huge monkey bar that was like an ascending, descending thing. The whole thing was really long. And that was like my bread and butter, right? Because I would get people to come and learn. And what happened is one day I come in and it's gone. And I was like, where are my monkey? Where's the monkey bars? I have a workshop this weekend. What's happening? Patrick, and the owner, he comes up to me, he sees I'm like having an anxiety attack. I'm like, what's going on? He says, don't worry, I'll get a smaller one. It's okay, but we're putting in a jujitsu academy. And I was like, what is that? Like, what is this jujitsu that has now taken away my monkey bars? I was like mad about it. And he's like, oh, here's going to be the owner. He introduced me to Jeremy and Jason, and sweetest people. So then I couldn't be mad anymore, right? I was like, oh, they're really nice. Okay, let me be nice. And they're like, once it's built, you got to try it. And I said, you know what? Okay, count me in, right? So rolls around May 2016, it's all ready. And they're like, come on in for a class. And I said, all right, threw on the gi, took my first class. And Jason threw me in the fire. Like, he had us roll the first day, and I tapped out probably, he triangled me like 9 times in one roll. I was like, ah. And it was at that moment I realized, like, I don't know anything and take my money and sign me up. And I was like immediately like addicted, like the adrenaline of it, everything. It was like perfect. It was what I had been looking for. It was a perfect balance of mind and body, kind of encompassed in one sport. And yeah, I pretty much signed up for my first tournament 3 days in, my third
Wow,
class. Yeah.
that's pretty intense.
Well, I had already been a person who did a lot of competing half marathons, Spartan races, things like that. And JC, which is Jason's brother, was kind of like, oh, you should compete one day. And I was like, well, how much are they? He's like, oh, it's like $80. I was like, oh, whatever. What am I going to lose? $80 and maybe be a little embarrassed, whatever, And so I signed up. And I remember Jason's coming out of the changing room and he says, hey, she signed up for the LA Open. And his face was kind of like, oh, all right, then let's do it. And next thing our whole academy pretty much competed in that tournament. It was so cool. It was super cool.
Yeah, and I mean, for those that are watching and listening that might not know the kind of ins and outs of jujitsu, right? I mean, it's something that you consult the coach first, right? Because they want to
Yes,
formulate a game plan. I mean, some gyms have competition trading in addition to your regular roles and what have you.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so he's just like, no, I
Yeah.
gotta like figure out what the heck, and I'm not even too sure what her body's capable of.
Yeah, exactly. And like the thing is, we're all personal trainers at that gym. So, I mean, maybe that helped a little bit, but still, it was kind of like, I think that's why all of us were so gung ho about it. We're just like, yeah, let's do it. And he's just like, oh. But you know what? He did a good job of getting us ready. He
How'd you
did.
place? Do you remember how you placed?
Oh, so my first match, I actually won the first match, which I was surprised. But see, thing was, no one told me about adrenaline dump, right? And I
Ah,
didn't know. And so I did the first match, won. I was all, my friends were there. I was all, and then it was about 20 minutes between matches, and I didn't know to like stay like warm and enough. And I mean, I was jumping around, but it wasn't like enough. I should have been doing drills and, you know, I didn't know any. And then so by the time I went in there, I remember I slept and bumped and I went and grabbed her, and that girl took me down side control armbar within a matter of like 30 seconds. It was just like she was like calculated, she was on it, and I was just sitting there like, what just happened to me? And so it was a good learning lesson for me. But like some of my other teammates who had started around the same time actually placed. Like some of them got silver. Some, I know, I was surprised. I was like, you know, so it wasn't my day, but as a team, you know, we did good. So
I mean that's what you could hope and wish for, you know. But also, it's just like you talk about an adrenaline dump, but like in terms of like ego, man, you'd be like, the queen of the world. I'm just
and your friends and family are watching.
yeah, like I'm just the best, the best. Watch, I'm gonna do that. Those gold medals are mine. Whatever, and then just all of that. It's just like literally emotions are draining. Just you know, like yeah, your energy's draining and what have you. And then like dang, you know, you almost kind of, and I've seen it happen. I've never actually competed, but you're like in your mind, you're kind of psyching yourself into that first match, and
Yeah,
then like
absolutely.
you're like, yeah, I got it, and then there's like, you got to do two more of these, and it's weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was my first time. You know, when you compete against another human being, it's way different than running. You know what I mean? Or doing obstacle. It's not the same because they're going 100, you know, percent.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Oh man, well, kudos for you to kind of figure it out. And kudos to Coach Rob up in Canada saying, "Coach Rob approved. Keep up the good work." Yeah, thank you, Coach Rob. And Throwback 978 saying, "What's good, Woodsy? What's good, Throwback? Part of the Body Slam Network family, which this is actually being broadcast on. So shout
awesome.
out to bodyslam.net. But so where does this competitive fire come from, right? Because like you don't just
Okay.
get up and start crossfitting and stuff, and like where does this come from?
So growing up, I was actually always really out of shape and really unhealthy. I actually spent a lot of my time in my teenage years in the emergency room because I have a lot of autoimmune diseases. I got rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, a couple other things too, like some gastric stuff, Crohn's, you know, and anyone who's had those things knows how that is. Generally, you're on a myriad of medications. I was obese and on a bunch of meds and in and out of the hospital all the time and just depressed from all the meds. And it was bad. And one day I saw an ad for a Spartan race. And it was like super motivational. I think they had like Ali talking in the background and it was like really well edited and something about it just like, I want to do that. You know, I just, you know, I always grew up being the fat girl, you know, the girl everyone made fun of. And I was like, you know, maybe I can make a change, you know, maybe I can do something. I don't know what it was. And I literally just, something in me just switched and I quit all the prescriptions I was on, right? Like, and that was a rough journey, I'll be honest. They had me on a lot of pretty heavy narcotics. I had to go through the withdrawal period of all that. I started hiking, you know, getting in shape, getting ready for it. I realized that hiking wasn't going to be enough. I hired my first personal trainer, Brandon Pike. And he put me through the ringer, started losing weight. I was no longer going to the ER as often for like having gastric delay. You know, I was having less flare ups. I was feeling better. And by the time I had been with him for, I would say it was about a year, I had gone from like 210 pounds down to like 165.
Wow.
Right. And I was feeling fantastic. I was doing well at my races. After he left 24-hour fitness, I was really sad. You know, I wasn't sure if I could afford him at the full price at the private fitness studio he was going. So I kind of did it on my own for a while. Lost touch, found another trainer at a private fitness studio, kind of continued my journey for a while, lost more weight. And at the time I was a veterinary technician. And I kind of realized that my life was changing, right? I was no longer on medicine. I wasn't going to ER a lot anymore. I was feeling better. And I was like, I want to do this for people. So that's when I decided to become a personal trainer. And I opened my business when I was 22 years old. Back in 2013, I decided to figure it out, get the fictitious business name, get the certifications. I was like, let's do it, why not? And so it just kind of all started from there, just the change. And then once I suddenly was healthy, something I never thought I could be, and I was in
Wow.
shape, something I never thought I could be, I was like, well, let's see how much further this can go. Right? Like, why don't we see if I can run? Why don't we see if I can, and it was just one of those things where I've run 3 half marathons, and I grew up with asthma. Like, I couldn't even run like a quarter mile. And now I've done 3 half marathons. I've done the beasts, which generally range from 12 to 15 mile Spartan races in 118-degree weather. And I believe it's just because I pushed myself, right? I told myself, where is the limit really, right? I believe it's mental. Like, even, limits can be mental, I believe. Even if you have physical limitations, you can choose to do your best to get kind of past some of those things. And I think for me, how my diseases work is if I'm not active, I get flare-ups. My nerves will misfire, tell my brain that something's broken, or for no reason at all whatsoever. If I put myself through the ringer, like jujitsu and lift, and in one day, my nerves are so shot from that I literally, they don't have any time to kind of do anything else. And so I'd rather be in pain for a purpose, right? I'm in
Right.
pain for getting healthy, for learning how to defend myself, things like that, for pushing myself. And so for me, it's kind of that mentality is where
No,
the
that's
competitive.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I mean, especially how dramatic, right? I mean, you're the way that you feel about yourself, getting off of meds, all of these things, these positive changes. Yes, and there's rough, right? Like, it's good to, like, oh yeah, and like, I tried this, and then here's what the reaction. But there's a lot of tough in between, right? And a lot of, like,
Oh
maybe,
yeah.
what the heck did I do to myself and all that jazz. But as positively as the change ended up being for you, I mean, when you were going through your ailments, did any of your doctors or anything suggest you get, like, physical, or was this just something
Well,
innate in you?
well, one of my doctors actually got mad at me for quitting all the medicine. Like, she was kind of like, you can't just do that. And I was like, well, why not? Like, I mean, she's like, well, it's not healthy. And looking back, I do see how cardiovascularly and things like that, it's not like necessarily super healthy but luckily I got through it. And I kind of had to start dealing with more holistic practitioners as time went on, to be honest, because a lot of normal practitioners kind of wanted me to be, well, just go back on med if you're having a flare up, or why don't I just give you an injection of morphine or this or that? And I'm like, no, thanks, and it was kind of rough. I had to advocate for myself. And it was definitely kind of a lot of situations in which it was kind of awkward, and I
Yeah.
just kind of had to stand my ground and say, no, this is what I believe is going to be best for me long term. And looking where I am now, I really do believe that I would have been way worse off now on that
No,
path.
yeah, and it's wild, right? Because, and especially right now, people are literally fighting each other and disowning families on who and are or aren't getting a vaccine, or how they feel about whatever. It's just a wild time. Like, I
Yeah,
almost dang died, but also, could
I
I
know.
help
I know.
to lose a couple pounds? Hell yes, I could. And then it's kind of being real with yourself. And for me, I like, get it, don't get it, whatever, it's your choice, right? But
Exactly.
the thing about it is, when we were living in Bakersfield, right? And the kids were, having, like, respiratory problems and all that, whatever. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office for one of my kids, and he's writing out a prescription, and on the lanyard of his I mean, of his, like, medical tag, is, like, whatever, prescription drug that they're pushing on the pen.
Like
Not
Pfizer or something
right,
like.
right. And then on the pen, same. And then on
Mhm.
the literally on the prescription, because, if you are of a certain age, usually when you go to the doctor, if they write the prescription, or the the doctor practitioner, nurse practitioner writes a prescription, it usually has, like a monogram stamp of their name or whatever. No, it's like, Propecia. Like, what? Wait, we got like
Yep.
Propecia, like
Yep.
prescription pads in
Yep.
like a kid's doctor, a pediatrician. Like, what are we doing here?
There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. I know it because when I was in the vet field, they used to give you goodies. The reps, they come by and they give you like they feed you, right? They give you a lunch, and they give you like this little goodie bags with like a pen and a pad of paper, and maybe like if it was a vet office, some stethoscopes, and they talk about the new drug and like how the kickbacks you'll get for each prescription you write. Oh, I remember all that. Yeah, that was.
Yeah. Oh, but that only happens to animals, right? It doesn't happen to people, right? No, no, but I mean, it's wild, and in if you study civilization, right? Like my mom's side of the family are from Fiji. There is like a a, a drink called laya laya that might be like ginger and like Asian garlic and all types of stuff that they brew and whatever, and it tastes like, I don't know, somebody put a foot in your coffee or whatever. It worse than that, actually. But it cured everything from like your respiratory illness to a stutter, or if you walk with a
Yeah.
limp. That, like, laya laya, that's what you got. Like, just close your nose, down the hatch, and what have you, right? So in generations before, that's the way we did things, right? Until like people, depending on where you're at in terms of history, like 17, 18 into the 1900s, that's when, like, I wouldn't say pharmaceutical, but when you're thinking about, oh well, here's a train over here, a steam engine, whatever, and then like what Coca-Cola is now was supposed to be something else, and it was laced with cocaine. Like, people were just trying to figure things out. They were like, oh,
Yes.
what do I put this and whatever. It
Yes.
wasn't that long ago, that you got prescribed leeches to kind of drain the bad stuff out of your body and what have you. That wasn't
Absolutely.
that long ago. Or shock therapy, that, I mean, as recently as the 70s, that was still being prescribed.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah.
it's a matter of figuring things out. But there was a way to figure things out prior to all of these technological advancements, and it's just like,
Yes.
we almost trade off for with all of the technological advancements and people who are the sage wise people of whatever, whether it be like, I mean, current day, the Elon Musk, or a tech tycoon, or a Nobel Peace Prize winner, which, funny enough, I mean, that Nobel, right, Alfred Nobel, created
Yeah.
bombs. So just, yeah, I'm just saying, let's just put that out there. But it's just like, we almost traded off like our relationship with nature, right? And
Absolutely.
the way that we healed nature, and nature healed us. It was a reciprocal deal,
Absolutely.
and it's like we got away from it. And I don't know, maybe that's why we're here. That's why COVID shut everything down. I don't know.
I mean, I honestly believe that the way that we live is not natural to our biology. Like the way we're meant to, the stresses that we deal with on a daily basis were never intended. The stresses we were supposed to have to deal with were wet food, shelter, water. Um, if the other village is trying to attack your village, and that's about it. And now we're over here worrying about your credit score, how you look on social media, your job, your bills. Are you going to pay the? And it's like the amount. I mean, I think that creates disease in the body, in my opinion. Like your mental and physical are very connected, and it's getting back to living. That's why I'm up here. Getting back to living simply, um, generally can heal a lot, in my opinion, personal opinion.
No, absolutely. Which, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned healed, because as competitive as you were with all the Spartan races and what have you, you go to the LA Open, do well the first time, and then maybe not do as well the second, right? And get
Yep.
subbed and what
Yep.
have you. But I mean, was there ego? Was there, like, that you had to
Yeah.
reconcile, or did you kind of
You know,
immediately know I had to go back to work?
For me, I think I'm one of those people who has always been okay with losing because, it means that I need to work way harder, and it's just kind of like in jujitsu, every time you tap, you're like, oh, don't do that again, or don't get caught there again. It's kind of how I felt. I was like, okay, now I know to not like, so my second tournament, I did way better, because I learned to not have that kind of mindset. I really had to change, make sure I was prepared for if I had to do like 8 or 9 rounds. And like it was embarrassing having my friends and family watch me get like taken down, and that's at the same time that girl was so good that I couldn't help but be like, and I think she
Dang.
ended up getting promoted on the podium. So I was like, okay, I'm not mad. Like, what I mean?
Right.
I was like,
Exactly.
so I've always kind of had that type of in my personality, that style of sportsmanship, kind of like, well, they were the better guy, you know. But I would say after having my first, the ego went from like here to like way down here, even more so, even in just everyday training. Because when you have a newborn, you got to worry about like, can I hold my baby? Right? I don't want to get armbarred too far, right? Or like, I don't want to like get injured and not be able to do my duties as a mother, right? My basic duties. And it's just like, oh, that really changed how I rolled, even, and like how I kind of wasn't so aggressive and was more relaxed, and flowing and a little bit. But then that kind of maybe wouldn't serve me in a competitive environment, right? So then I had to go back to finding that kind of middle ground, which has taken time, to
No,
find.
yeah, it takes a little time sometimes. And that's with everything in life. And Alex Ramirez says, Jessica, I can totally agree because lately everything you just mentioned has been messing with me mentally, and it's taken a toll in my friendships. I've thought about a change of scenery only because I feel like I'm losing my shit in LA, and you can feel like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's natural.
I mean, I'll be honest, whenever we go down the hill, because that's where we have to go to get like Target and things like that, it feels like I could feel it like as soon as we exit Mentone area, it's like everything's buzzing, everyone's moving, everyone's busy, it's just so different. It's like overwhelming a little bit, like the energy of it all. It's just, oh, everyone's just so go, 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 go. And even the way they drive, everything, it's very, very different. And depending on what kind of person you are, some people like that. I know I have a lot of friends that thrive on that. They thrive on that buzzing, but there are kind of people like myself that actually have found a lot of solace in not being around all that, but being close
Yeah,
enough that I can go to it when I want to. It's only like 2 hours, to get to
right.
LA. Yeah, so
Yeah, and I mean, did you grow up in LA?
I grew up in Pasadena,
Okay,
born and
yeah.
raised. Yep.
Yeah, and I because I'm a transplant, right? I kind of lived everywhere as a kid until we settled on Inglewood, and for me, I didn't even want to go anywhere else because like I I I, I didn't think I went any further north of Hollywood and Highland until I meet my wife and we moved to Bakersfield. But like I was
That's a
L.A.
huge change.
South. Yeah, exactly, right? But I was like LA, South Bay, Torrance, whatever. I was just in that area. And but I find that people that were born and raised in LA or anywhere in Southern California, either it's almost like the Amish, right? Where you live that life,
Yes.
and then like you
Yes.
turn 18 and you're like,
You go
oh, you
off.
guys could, yeah, figure out what the English do and whatever and whatever. And
Yes.
some people they come back, and some people are like, deuces, man. You can churn
Yep.
your butter all you
Yeah.
want. Hey, I'm gonna do the big city, and it's just how people are
Yep.
wired. But one thing that I've figured out is like people that have lived in LA, you can kind of slice it down to two kind of ideologies. It's like I got to get the heck out of here, or to live in down in LA. But the transplants, we're kind of like, I don't know where everybody's going. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've kind of lived in a couple different counties, and I settled here mainly just because it was a kind of nice balance. I've lived in I don't know if you've ever heard of an area called Fraser Park. It's on the way to
Yeah,
Bakersfield. You go up the
yeah,
Grapevine.
yeah, 100%.
There's
Yeah,
nothing There's nothing in Fraser Park. Like
Mm,
literally, there's a post office, a skate park, and one grocery store. Terrible. Like you have to drive an hour to get good food, like groceries even, because the
mm,
grocery store meat was always like flies on it. It was just
mm.
not, so I've been over there in Kern. I've been in San Bernardino, LA, and Big Bear was great because it was like I was in a mountain, but I still had the Vons, right? We still have some normal stuff, but not as much. It's kind of a nice in between. I've lived in Running Springs, which only had a Jensen's, which is kind of like like the Gelsons of the mountain.
Oh,
So it was like you were kind of
snooty.
forced. Yeah, you were kind of forced to spend more. So I would drive down the hill, to get groceries when I was over there because it was only like 20 minutes. But when you're in Big Bear, no matter which way you go, you're about an hour from like the closest like Target, like, major shopping center, whether you go back to Lucerne, over to Highland, or down on the Yucaipa side. Doesn't matter. It's like an hour. So it's definitely a little different, you
No,
know.
100%. But speaking of incentives to come back to LA, one Paulette says, one incentive, like coming to see your mom. Why not?
Yep. I do go down there for that too. Yep. We go to visit our family in the flatlands. That's what we call it, the flatlands. So.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's I mean, that's definitely a towny speak, you know. But I just love that evolution where you're just like you're trying to figure out what works, right? And not
Mhm.
necessarily putting limitations to it, because some people they work their tails off to get to a Pasadena or what have you, and whether it be the Rose Parade or it's if for people who haven't been to Pasadena, it's a town totally self-sufficient. Like, and
Yes.
pe- people that are, you could tell, like people who live in Pasadena, whatever, they usually work in town. They don't even
Yep.
venture down to
Nope.
like South Pasadena, which is, and even like South Pasadena and Pasadena, they kind of beef
Like
and like
different.
who's
Yeah. Yeah.
cultured, who's not, or whatever, who's got the
Yes.
better party seat. And it's just, it's wild, man. It's so wild. But I mean, some people, they work their way to get there, versus like,
Yep.
it can be scary leaving everything that you know and are synonymous with, and just going like, nah, this is a change for me, just like the
Yeah.
CrossFit and what have you. And of course there's attributes that you can take from CrossFit, and that's why a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioner, mixed martial artists, and what have you, they take up CrossFit and yoga and cross training and what have you,
Yep.
because Olympic lifting or what have you, because
I like
it's
that one.
so
Yeah.
beneficial. Right, it's so beneficial, to the longevity, especially when you get to
Mhm.
the Gordon Ryans and like there's a
Yes.
litany of people that this is their full-time gigs, and
Yes.
it's beneficial, and it also stays back that pesky little injury bug too.
Yes. The injuries. Yes. That's always, you can't really avoid it, but you can figure out how to heal them as they come. So in jiu-jitsu, if you're a competitor, it's at some point or another.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I actually had a instance, and this is like jujitsu brain. But and I'm a no strike white belt, so it's not even like, oh, I'm whatever big esteem. No, like no stripe white belt, whatever. But I heard somebody in the CVS like drugstore talking about, I think I got tennis elbow. And I was like, oh, this is what you need, the strap, da da da. You might want to put like ice and whatever. And she's like, are you a doctor? And I was like, no, I just have messed myself up a bunch of times, and I have a bunch of
Yeah.
friends who have done same. So that's
Yep.
just
Yep.
that's just it. She's like, "Are you a doctor?" And I was like, "No, yeah,
I
it's
just have
just
experience.
yeah. I've been where you're at. It sucks,
Yes.
but you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Just get that, that,
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah.
And it's just like, "Oh my gosh," and it's just like, "Can I write you a review on the Yelp?" And I was like, "No, I don't think that's the way it works." But I thank you anyway. Got a podcast. I think she subscribed. I don't know. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's just fun. It's just fun, the things that come about. So I mean, when you were starting, obviously, starting your own business and, competing yourself and adopting a completely different way of life, at any point were you training? Because I know when I trained, I was like, I know I want this. And for me, and the guy that's gotten a lot of heat in the last like week or so, Joe Rogan, right? The reason
Yes,
why Joe
yes,
Rogan can do cage fighting and has been in the UFC since like UFC 7 or what have you. I mean, obviously he took time off or whatever, but he's a comedian. He knows how to talk to people, right?
yes,
And then
yes,
that's also, culminated into the podcast where you can have 4 hour long conversations with people and not have the guests, feeling long in the
directing
tooth.
it or like kind of
Right,
waiting. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And also, the listener or the viewer, right? So that's something so masterful. Me, I knew I was doing jujitsu. Yeah, I like it and whatever. And people, separating each other from their consciousness unceremoniously. I dug it. I dug it. I'm a pro wrestling fan. It's what we
yeah,
do.
yeah.
But the thing about it is, I always knew I was doing it for this, to maybe articulate it in a way for people that don't know, right? But for you,
Yes.
who already had a business and what have you, were you training with maybe an eye on the prize? Like, hey, maybe I'll have my own academy one day.
Yes. Yes, actually, because being a personal trainer, like I love teaching people. Like I never considered it a job. There was one point where I had like 22 clients. So I was like back to back all day and I just loved it. It was awesome. It was great. And so when I started doing jujitsu and I met, Jason, and he was such a great instructor because he's also a personal trainer. And the way we teach is a little different than your traditional. We kind of tell you, move your, this muscle, that muscle, and it just made it very easy to understand. And I knew then, like, this is what I want to do one day. I want to get my black belt. I want to have an academy. I want to teach people jujitsu. I don't know where, but I just know at some point, that is my long-term goal. Just because being a self-employed person, once you do it for a certain amount of time, by then I had already been self-employed for 3 years. There wasn't going to be any ever going back, and I knew jujitsu was going to be a major part of my life. And so I had this idea and this vision of what if I can combine like an academy and a personal training studio, kind of like what Patrick had there at PSC, but maybe not so big, more like intimate, just because it's a lot to manage. I saw him always running around. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. Start small, you know and so that's why I always did a lot of cross training and always was friendly with everybody, because I knew long term these were all people that I was maybe going to need to know as an academy owner, for just to ask ideas, get marketing strategies, any problems they've run into, how they resolved it, mentorship kind of in a way. And one really big mentor for me was friend Gina Miller of Paragon, and I met him because of Lionheart being a Paragon affiliate. And I've asked him for a lot of advice. He gives me a ton of advice. I've get Matt and Jill Baker of True Jitsu have given me a lot of tips. My good
That's
friend
where I
Josh Valley.
started.
The Bakers are awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I actually was there
Yes,
when Jill got her black belt.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. I love them. They're like my inspiration. You know what I mean? Like what they have going there with all the families training together. It's beautiful. I love it.
Oh man, I mean, to tell you, because I got bit by the bug pretty hard, and I was the job that I was working at the time in Bakersfield. Um, one of my friends, Brian Gray, he was already a blue belt, right?
Okay.
And I obviously kind of like watching MMA, all that, whatever, and I was like, you do jujitsu? I had like I knew of the Gracies and what have you, but like I didn't know that people could actually just like go and train. Like people play pickup basketball or whatever. Like the fact that open mats exist and people are just doing
Yeah,
it
yeah, right.
at that point of the journey. This is just like what, 2013, 2014. Like I didn't know that was available, right? And one thing that I did with Brian is like he was like, why don't you try intro class? I was like, yeah, when? Because he actually lived in Santa Clarita, or Palmdale, which is 90 minutes away and what have you. He's like,
Yeah.
I actually go at lunch for the afternoon class. And I was like, cool. And I literally bought a gi, and not just any gi, but a Elio 100, because there was a commemorative gi that signified the 100th year of Elio Gracie first training jiu-jitsu, right? So
Okay.
I got
Okay.
that, and I showed up
Oh.
on like an intro class and whatever. I
Yes.
got choked with that $200 gi so many dang times, but I was like, I'm in, and I had a little chunk of money. I think it was like my tax return. And I'm like, I'll do 6 months and what have you. And I was
Yep.
just completely hooked and what have you. And I would go 3 times a week in for the afternoon classes with Brian, and he lived in Palmdale. I lived in town, so I would, my poor wife, and I wasn't driving at the time. She picked me up from work and then take me to jiu-jitsu. I was obsessed. It was what have you. But one of the reasons why is because the nurturing environment of Matt and Jill Baker's True Jitsu.
It's hard not to with them. Yeah. They make it easy to love jujitsu, I would definitely
Heck,
say.
I got laid off. Like I got laid off, and people had heard and what have you through social media, whatever. And I showed up to jiu-jitsu the next day. And I'm like, "You're here?" And I was like, "I mean,
This is where I
I
need
s-
to be.
exactly." And I mean, technically, I'm good for another 2 weeks, right? Like I paid, I'm good. Like
Yeah.
whatever. So that's it. And it was that 2 weeks where like there was a little bit of normalcy before things started getting really weird and hairy, and we ended up moving back to LA. But that was kind of the thing. If I move back to LA, I get into the MMA jiu-jitsu scene, and that's kind of been the case since I've been back, which is
Yeah.
funny, speaking it into existence, right?
Right. That's how it goes, right?
That's how it goes. That's how it goes. So, I mean, what's the intent? Because obviously, like when I came here, there was Fight Academy. That's where I ended up. You was Savant Young.
Yes.
There's a litany of jujitsu gyms. I think an RC Machado gym is right there off of like East Colorado Boulevard and what have you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what's the intent? Maybe to have something away from Pasadena, or were you look and the gym that you were training at? Obviously, they had ties in Pasadena as well, right? So, I mean, did you want to have it elsewhere, or were you thinking
I
Pasadena
didn't
initially?
necessarily have it in mind because, it takes so long to get a black belt anyway. And I figured, by the time I get a black belt, who knows where I'm going to be living? Because I was always kind of one of those people that never had it set in stone. I'm going to live here. I'm going to retire here because you never know, right? I've had enough changes in my life to just not have any expectations. And so I just said, I knew at some point I wanted to open one. I just wasn't sure where. And when I lived in my first mountain town and felt the effects of the altitude, the first mountain town I lived in was around 5,248 feet. And we set up some mats in the garage. Right here, we're at 7,000, just letting you know. So we're even higher, right where yes. It's actually the highest altitude training facility in Southern California. So it's pretty cool. And it is definitely a different beast because there's less oxygen in the air, right? And so, people normally wear those like masks,
Yeah, the
to
training
try
mask.
but they're
Yeah,
kind of like they're limiting their overall air intake. They're not actually changing like the ratio of oxygen to, whereas up here there is legitimately less oxygen. So if you can survive like 7-minute rounds up here, then down there feels pretty like not so bad. And that's why the high school up here has a lot of Olympic runners, because of the cross country teams running around these mountains all day at 7,000 to 8,000 feet altitude. So once I lived in my first mountain town, I knew, okay, it's going to have to be at altitude in some way, shape, or form, right? Like I was looking into like Tehachapi, I was looking into like Bear Valley Springs, Fraser Park area, just anywhere up above 5,000 was kind of the goal. And I looked and looked and looked and looked and landed in Big Bear.
wow.
And I knew I wanted to do it on my property because of all the COVID stuff going on.
Yeah.
I wanted it to kind of be like a private kind of on in a way so that no one could come tell me what I can't do if I need to make my students wear this or that or I didn't want to deal with any of that, right? Like just didn't even want it to be like a forethought. And so I made sure to get a property that had a garage. And my thought was just, just small little mat space. I'll just teach some like private, start from there, keep training until I get my black belt one day and eventually open an academy. But things ended up kind of happening way faster than I expected because I met my husband up here, because I signed up for a Jeff Glover Money on the Mat tournament after having not competed for like, I think it was like 4 years. Right. And then, and all of a sudden it was like, now you're going to compete. And I had to get ready. So I went to the grappling club, which is where he was. And, he's a black belt, and we met and, kind of, became close and, ended up getting married and have a baby together. And now here we are opening our academy, and so it's just one of those things where I wasn't expecting it to be necessarily like what's happening. I was not expecting to happen in the time frame it happened or any of that. I just had an idea of what I wanted eventually, and here we are. And it's a very interesting thing, because even the fact that he joined the business and we decided to open academy, all of that was not planned or not foreseen. It was just kind of a series of events that led us to this position in which it made the most sense to actually make it a full-blown academy, as opposed to just a little fitness studio with a small mat space.
No, 100%. And that's weird, right? With the COVID situation, and assuming that you made it through with your life and what have you, but it either expedited or delayed whatever your plans were. Like that.
Oh,
It was one way or
it
another. It
changed
wasn't like in the
completely.
monetary. Yeah.
The way I thought it was going to happen was not how anything happened. You know what I mean? There was a struggle bus there when I left behind a business that I had been running for years and years in Pasadena, starting over fresh in a valley where the median income is like maybe 30, coming from
Wow.
Pasadena where everybody makes, 100 to 200. It was
Yeah.
a huge risk shift, for me to come up here and, start even doing personal training business, like, cause that's what I was just going to do. Just, personal training, teach a couple beginner privates, just keep it small, just kind of enough to get by. And even getting equipment was so hard during COVID. Everything was super expensive, trying to find
Mm-hmm.
bars, trying to find plates, everything was a struggle bus, and I had to really like get everything together.
Right.
And I was like coasting with only 2 clients for a while. It was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't think I was going to make it. I was like, I'm going to have to move to like some Barstow or so. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to have to, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I thought and, you know, it was just one of those things where I got very blessed. It was a huge blessing. I was praying about it. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. My husband and I were good friends, and he owned a home up here too. And when we got together, he basically sold his home, moved in here, and we moved in together, and were able to stay. And it was like I believed that I guess God wanted me to stay here. You know what I mean? And it was just one of those things where. Then all of a sudden we were in a position to be able to expand the building.
No,
So
I think that's great. Which I mean, and it's funny outside looking in, right? Because when you see like black belts, especially black belts together, right? And you know there are some that they stay with their mentor, their professor, right? And then there are some that even before they get maybe a brown, get to a brown belt level, whatever, they open up their own school or what have you, and sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's like acrimonious split or what have you, right? But the
yes,
the fact that again, and to expedite your dreams of owning your own gym, having a black belt within your family, right, as a significant other, definitely helps the legitimacy of whatever you're trying to build, right? So, was your, where was Mr. Van Alstyne, right? Like, where
so
was he? Did he want to start a gym himself, or
no,
was he
I
like,
don't. This he. he was just going and rolling, you know. It was one of those things where you know, he got his black belt from Hanato Magno, and he, you know, they were, the grappling club is like a street sport affiliation, you know, and he was up there just kind of just, you know, he worked as a security guard at the high school up here, and he was perfectly happy with that. And when we got together, you know, I had 2 children from my previous marriage, and my daughter has autism, and she needs full-time care, like, you know,
Wow.
because of that. And, you know, the amount of money he was making wasn't enough for me to not work. And it was kind of, I wasn't making enough for him. And it was just kind of this whole, we were trying to figure it out, how to, we couldn't pay for full time, you know. It was just kind of trying to figure out the dynamics of how to, me make money, him make money, but also her have the care, also having my other son, you know. And it was just, we were trying to figure it all out. And so we sat down, we talked about it, and, you know, we said, hey, you know, you can just do the, start teaching some privates maybe, you know, and maybe make a little more that way, and we can just kind of figure this out. So he left his job at the high school basically to join me in this, so that we both had that flexibility to, like, you know, switch off, you know, like one of us out there, one of us in there, kind of taking care of. And like I said, he's a saint for doing that, because this, you know, that's a stepchild. It's not even his, you know, his own blood, and he was willing to do that. And so, like I said, I felt very blessed. Unfortunately, he did have a little bit of like a political falling out with, you know, Hanato about everything. And as you know, in jujitsu politics, these things do happen, but it's okay. You know, there's no hard feelings on either side. And right now we're actually going to be mostly training with Frangina, who is, you know, a dear mentor to me, and, you know, just kind of being under him, because as you know, black belt, it doesn't end there. You know, you're going to continue training forever. And you
Right.
need someone above you, right? And he was having a little bit of an issue up here of the kind of big fish small pond kind of thing. He was like, you know, there was 2 other black belts on the mountain, but they have full-time jobs, you know, they don't train every
Mm.
day, you know, they both run their own businesses. And so he was kind of the only one who was training every day. And
Right.
so, you know, this is great for him too, because now we've been getting other people, like we're having Mason Fowler come for a seminar,
Yeah.
you know, we're getting other people that now we can get better, because it's hard. It's isolated up here. You don't, you know, and that's why I said we live in a resort town. Like we could totally like, why people can do things while they're here. There's ski resorts, there's mountain biking, there's hiking, there's a lake, there's kayaking, fishing. I mean, there's stuff to do. It's just, you know, getting people up here, and then getting the people who live up here starting to train. And so we're actually going to be working on scholarships for like low income families and low income teens and things like that with the local city councilman, in order to kind of help, you know, our community, for the people who don't even really know what the beauty of jujitsu and martial arts and how it can really change your life. Because a lot of problems in mountain towns, sadly, these teens are very bored, and they turn to
Right.
methamphetamine, different drugs. It's a very common problem in rural areas because there's nothing to do. And when you train martial arts, it's kind of hard. And that's the thing with Dutch. He worked at the high school, and he saw these kids, and he would build these relationships with them. And it would hurt him to see them graduate and then see them like sleeping in their car. He could tell, you know, they're methed out, or, you know, they didn't make it, you know. He dealt with a lot of kids that have been through some horrible, horrible things. And he was like, man, if I could just get them to train, you know. And of course, they weren't going to want to train with the security guard, right?
Right.
They don't want to train with the guy who just put them in, you know, Saturday school and stuff. So
Yeah.
him
Right.
leaving that job has actually made it where now some of these people are like, oh, okay, you know, maybe actually I do want to train with you now. You know what I mean? Because you're not like watching me at school and stuff. And so for him, it wasn't in his plan, but now he's like, it's crazy. Everything that I had experienced kind of led to this, right? To us being able to do this. And for him, he's like, right now he's inside watching the kids, but he's super stoked about it. He's like very happy. Like right now, as we started breaking ground, he's like, yeah, you know. So it's kind of cool, because it wasn't necessarily in the deck of cards in his mind, but it's something that he's so happy with. And so that's how it's like, it's perfect. So
I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I mean, geez, Mason Fowler coming, and teaching a seminar. That's huge. Which, I mean,
yeah.
that's coming up, right?
Yeah, so I'm so excited. We finally just finalized all those details. It's going to be Mason Fowler, Danielle Kelly, and Heather Raftery. So it's going to be like a camp, right? It's going to be a 2-day event where we all have like a group breakfast, and then there's going to be a seminar, a break, a seminar. We're all going to take a bus to hike a local hike up here at altitude, have a nice view. There will be a team dinner that night. Next day, another breakfast, another seminar, and then there's the kayaking group that's going to go kayaking after. So it's going to be a really fun event where not only are you learning jujitsu, but you're getting to kind of see our town, right? And spend some time with the athletes, get to know them a little bit, maybe learn each other's jujitsu stories, and just kind of build like a community. And we have people coming from Florida, New Jersey, like, I mean, already we have 17 spots booked. So we're really excited. Yeah, because it was going to be a 30, it was just this idea I had because I was thinking, not a lot of people even know Big Bear exists. They just know like about like Tahoe and Mammoth, but we got skiing here too,
Yeah.
and we got altitude here too. And it's a good place for people to come and train and vacation.
No, 100%. So when is the jiu-jitsu camp? When is that
That's
going
going to
down?
be July 23rd through 24th. So I'm recommending most people, if they're flying or driving, to get in on the 22nd and book their Airbnbs or hotels, because lodging is not included in the camp, just because liability and all that.
Right.
And so that way everyone kind of books everything, and then they can be here for the team breakfast on Saturday. And then most likely everyone would probably want to stay Sunday night too and head home Monday, just because you're going to be tired after 3 seminars, an open mat, a hike, and a kayak. You're probably not going to want to be leaving that evening. So even though it's a 2-day event, I'm kind of telling people to like plan from like the 22nd through the 25th.
Right.
That's kind of July.
That's awesome. And for deets, for entry to this camp, where can that be found?
So if you go on to our Instagram, which is at Ace Performance Training CA for California, or you can even like message me, I can give info, but basically people are just contacting me directly to get on the pre-reservation list. I'm planning to start sending out contracts on Friday for everyone to kind of, start making payments and getting everyone in. The camp is $500 per person, and it includes 5 meals, the 3 seminars, and the group activity. So it's a pretty good bargain if you're looking to learn from, 3 different people and get some food and do some fun stuff. I tried to keep the price point reasonable, to try and get people up, and that way everyone got paid what they needed to get paid, and everyone's happy and has a really good time. And so we're really excited. And depending on how this one goes, we're going to try and do one every season, so we'll do a summer camp, a fall camp, a winter camp. I've already been getting some prices from some other people, and I'll release all that as the times get closer. So
What a journey you've been to kind of, this is a culmination, right? I mean, and
yes,
essentially because you're breaking ground on the academy. So theoretically speaking, I mean, the academy, time wise, this is almost the camp is almost the introductory to what you guys are doing with Ace Performance.
exactly. That was kind of what I was hoping to kind of have it be the first major like thing once brand new building, brand new mats, and boom, camp, and kind of make it, and it brings revenue to our town, and with us being a low income town, even though it's a resort town, you would think that most of the people in this town are like wealthy, but realistically that is not the case, especially in
Right.
Sugarloaf area over on the east end here, Bear City. It's a lot of poverty, and so we're definitely trying to help the overall, and that's why our vendors, for example, we're using all local vendors for the catering, right? Like small, like families who, like, one of them lives right down the street here, and this way we're kind of helping support our town as well as jujitsu. So
I think it's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't be more proud of you guys and what you're doing. It's, I mean, so, I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago to me where, like, I'm working at Osh,
Right?
Orchard in Pasadena, and then you get in pregnant, and then, like, I was like, wait, I've seen you in a couple of my friends, like, Instagrams. Like, I know you, you're Jessica, right? And to me, it
Yep.
doesn't seem all that long ago, but, like, that was literally, like, that was the first kid. You had two sins, and then I'm doing this. And Orchard's not even a thing anymore. Like a year after
I
I
know, I'm
went there, it's
sad. That
like,
was my favorite store growing up.
yeah,
I loved it.
yeah. There was for those outside of California, that is a small regional, kind of a home and garden slash. It wasn't Home Depot. It was just like smaller than Home Depot, and you could get like
Yeah,
vintage candy
yeah. They had
bars,
like
which
plants
was,
and stuff and
yeah,
dog
yeah.
food, random things. Yeah.
Yeah, they got bought out by Lowe's and didn't change with the times, and they adios that one. But yeah, what a crazy journey it's been, and I couldn't be more proud of you and seeing all the things that you're doing, and literally not just speaking of things into existence, but actually putting the work behind it. And it hasn't always been easy, but that's part of the beauty.
Yes, and kind of what I'm hoping is that, because of everything that I've experienced and been through, someday I'll have some wisdom and knowledge to pass on to somebody else, kind of like all of my mentors that I've been blessed to have, over my almost 6 years of training, and even before that, being a personal trainer, I had a lot of great mentors. And so I'm just kind of hoping that, if anyone ever needs help or anything, I'll be there, for when they need it. So, because it's definitely, it's a lot of planning, especially like, the building, getting like the architect and everything, and the permits and building the team, because I'm general contracting the project myself to save money. Uh, and so, getting all the all of that it's been a big
No,
organization.
yeah,
Yeah.
be better than me. And also the fact that, again, you're like, someday I'll have some knowledge. I've given up. I'm like close to 40. I'm like, it's not gonna happen. So
That's
kudos
not
to you
true.
for
That's not true. That's not true. Don't say
I
that.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yeah, and yeah, so Paulin says I miss Osh. I don't, because it treated me like garbage, but that's another
Well,
story
yeah, yeah.
for another day.
Yeah, I miss shopping
Yeah,
there, but if they treated you well, then screw them. So.
yeah. Boo them. No, but obviously, Jessica, there have been a lot of people who, both professionally and personally, have cultivated you, where you're beginning to cultivate other people. So take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Oh man, where do I even start? Okay, we'll start with Patrick Cottle. He was the owner of PSC. Joe Del Toro, owner of Matador. We got Johnny T. We got Frangina, Jason Huatko, Jeremy Zergami, and Matt and Jill, of course. And my good friend Josh Valias has also been an inspiration for me, because he's built something beautiful after his struggle bus. So those are the ones that I can really think of at the top.
I dig it. I dig it. And now, obviously, we said it once before, and I've linked all of the links right here in the bio wherever anyone is watching this. So definitely go check it out. But I did it, but I think it bears repeating. Where can you find you on the socials?
Oh, okay. So on Instagram, we're at Ace Performance Training CA for California. And then on Facebook, I believe we're, Ace Performance Training on Facebook. We have a Google, we have a Yelp. If you go to our Instagram, we do have a link tree. You click that and it has like all our links right there too. And you can kind of navigate to our website and all that good stuff. aceperformancetraining.com is also our website.
Heck
So
yeah. Oh man, it's awesome. It's awesome. But also it's awesome that you stopped by. So thank you for doing this. And thank you guys for
thank
joining us
you.
here. Me? I'm just
Yes,
wow.
yes, thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But and thank you guys for joining us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I mean, Jessica, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Of course.
Dang right.
Yes.
So go ahead and be like Jessica and go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. But if you don't believe me, you don't believe Jessica, and I don't know why you wouldn't. Well, here's Zeta Zang to help convince you.
It's
Hey, this is Zeta Zang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods YouTube.